The distress call. The Meridan homeworld of Talaris shimmered like an azure jewel against the black canvas of space, its 3 moons creating a protective halo that had guarded the planet for millennia. Supreme Coordinator Ilara stood at the observation deck of the Central Harmony Spire, her 4 eyes fixed on the distant stars where tiny flashes of light betrayed the ongoing battle. Her pale blue skin had lost its characteristic luminescence, now appearing dull and ashen as the weight of her civilization's impending doom pressed heavily upon her shoulders. Supreme Coordinator, Tactician Veran approached, his steps hesitant. The outer defense ring has fallen. The Void Swarm has broken through the Celestial Gate. Ilara's secondary hands gripped the railing tighter, while her primary set remained folded in formal posture, maintaining dignity even as their world collapsed around them. The Void Swarm had appeared at the edge of their system just 14 cycles ago, a living darkness that consumed everything in its path. Not a conventional army or even a unified species, but a collective consciousness controlling billions of insectoid drones that stripped planets bare of all resources, organic and otherwise. "How many evacuation ships made it through?" she asked, her melodic voice trained. 17, Coordinator. Approximately 8,000 civilians. Veran's voice cracked. Out of 9 billion. The numbers hit Ilara like physical blows. The Meridum Collective had spent 10,000 years building their civilization. Architects of beauty, masters of sustainable technology, pioneers of harmonious existence. They had spread across 12 worlds in their system, created wonders that attracted visitors from across the known galaxy, and developed medicines that had saved countless lives across dozens of species. All of it now falling to the swarm. "And our pleas to the Galactic Concord?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Veran's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of profound regret. "The Concord has enacted Isolation Protocol Omega. They've quarantined our entire sector. No aid will be forthcoming." Ilara had expected this, but the betrayal still stung. The Meridans had been founding members of the Galactic Concord, had served for millennia as mediators in interspecies conflicts, had offered their medical expertise freely to all member worlds. And now, when they needed help most desperately, the Concord had abandoned them to their fate, fearing the swarm would follow any rescue ships back to their worlds. Supreme Coordinator, a new voice joined them. Science Director Linar approached, carrying a data crystal that pulsed with urgent light. "There may be another option." "Speak quickly, Director," Ilara said. "Time is the one resource we have exhausted." Linar activated the crystal, projecting a holographic image of a blue-green planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. "This is a world called Earth. Its inhabitants call themselves humans. They are not members of the Concord." Veran scoffed. "The primates. They have barely achieved system-wide travel. What could they possibly offer against the swarm?" "Something the Concord lacks," Linar replied, his voice unusually animated. "The capacity for warfare." The projection shifted, showing historical footage that Meridan xenologists had collected during their discrete observations of Earth. Images flashed of human conflicts spanning their history, primitive battles with basic weapons giving way to increasingly sophisticated machines of war, culminating in what appeared to be current military exercises. "The Concord races have enjoyed peace for so long they've forgotten how to fight," Linar continued. "But these humans, their entire history is punctuated by conflict. They understand battle in ways we cannot comprehend. They're also fiercely protective," added Communication Officer Tela, who had joined them silently. "Our cultural analyses suggest they possess an unusual trait. They extend protective instincts not just to their own kind, but to others they consider worthy of defense. They call it empathy." Ilara studied the images with growing interest. "Can we contact them? Do we understand their communication systems?" "We've been monitoring their transmissions for decades," Tela confirmed. "I can send a targeted quantum burst directly to their unified military command structure." "But Coordinator," she hesitated, "the Concord prohibited contact with Earth. They classified humans as a potential threat species due to their aggressive tendencies. A bitter laugh escaped Ilara, the first time she had made such a sound in public memory. The Concorde's prohibitions hardly matter now, do they? Send the transmission. Include all data on the swarm, our situation, and our coordinates. What could we possibly offer in exchange for their help? Varan asked, practical even in desperation. Ilara's 4 eyes focused on the image of Earth, spinning peacefully in its holographic projection. Knowledge, technology, a future beyond their own star, and perhaps something they value even more, a chance to prove themselves to the galaxy that has ignored them. Within moments, Tela had prepared the quantum transmission. The message was simple, direct, and contained everything the humans would need to understand the dire situation facing the Meridans. With a final authorization from Ilara, the plea for help shot across vast interstellar distances, bypassing conventional communication networks to arrive instantly at the designated Earth coordinates. Then they waited, watching as the swarm methodically dismantled the last of their orbital defenses. Even if they respond, Varan said quietly, their fastest ships would take years to reach us. We have nothing to lose by trying, Ilara replied. And perhaps, a communication alert interrupted her. Tela's hands moved frantically across her console, her expression shifting from surprise to confusion. Coordinator, we've received a response. Already? Ilara moved swiftly to the communication station. What do they say? Tela displayed the message, remarkably brief by Meridan standards. Transmission received. Coordinates confirmed. Hold position. Assistance inbound. Human DF command. Inbound from where? Varan demanded. They cannot possibly reach us in time. Before anyone could speculate further, the sensors across the Harmony Spire began flashing urgent alerts. A massive distortion had appeared at the edge of the Talaris system, far from any known jump point. Spatial anomaly detected, reported the sensor operator, voice rising in pitch. Configuration unknown. Energy signature. Massive. The main display shifted to show the phenomenon. A swirling vortex of energy, unlike anything in Meridan scientific records. It was not the chaotic tear of a natural wormhole, but something precisely controlled, artificially generated. More swarm reinforcements? Ilara asked, dread filling her voice. No, the operator replied, adjusting the sensors. The energy signature is completely different, and something is coming through. They watched, transfixed, as vessels began emerging from the vortex. Unlike the elegant, streamlined designs of Concorde ships or the organic, chitinous forms of the swarm, these craft were angular, asymmetrical, and bristling with what could only be weapon systems. They moved with surprising grace for their bulky appearance, immediately forming into tactical formations. 67 vessels and counting, the operator reported, awe evident in his voice. The portal remains active. The Void Swarm, detecting the new arrivals, diverted a portion of its forces to intercept. The collective intelligence controlling the swarm had never encountered humans before, but recognized the configuration of their ships as potential threats. It calculated attack vectors based on the superior numbers and biological processing power of its drones. It was a calculation that failed to account for human ingenuity. The Earth vessels didn't attempt to evade or establish defensive positions. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the approaching swarm, weapons blazing with an intensity that forced the Harmony Spire's visual systems to automatically adjust. The swarm, programmed to methodically dismantle conventional resistance through overwhelming numbers, suddenly faced an enemy that showed no concern for expected tactical doctrines. This is impossible, Varan whispered as they watched the battle unfold. Though the swarm outnumbered the human vessels many times over, the Earth ships were inflicting devastating damage, moving in patterns that seemed chaotic until they resulted in the precise destruction of key swarm clusters. Incoming transmission, Tela announced. Direct communication request from what appears to be the human command vessel. The main display shifted to show a human, bipedal, with only 2 eyes and arms, wearing a dark uniform adorned with symbols of rank. The being's skin was a rich brown, with short silver hair framing a face marked with what the Meridans recognized as age indicators. "This is Admiral Ayanna Chen of the United Nations Defense Force," the human said without preamble, voice carrying a calm authority that seemed at odds with the chaotic battle being waged. "We've engaged the hostile forces in your system. Begin immediate evacuation of your civilian population to the coordinates being transmitted now. We'll cover your retreat." Ilara stepped forward. "Admiral Chen, we are grateful beyond words for your intervention, but we have nowhere to retreat to. The swarm has blockaded all escape routes." The human's expression remained composed, but something flickered in those alien eyes. Determination, perhaps. "Understood. Secondary protocol engage. Prepare to receive ground teams on your surface. We're extracting your people directly. Please coordinate with Ground Commander Jackson when he arrives." The transmission ended abruptly as the Admiral returned to directing the battle. Within hours, human vessels were descending through Talaris's atmosphere. The soldiers that emerged were clad in formidable armor that made them appear more machine than organic, carrying weapons unlike anything in the Meridan defensive arsenal. Ground Commander Jackson, a shorter human with dark skin and intense eyes, met with Ilara and her council directly. Unlike Admiral Chen, his demeanor was less formal, though his words remained direct. "Supreme Coordinator, we've secured temporary orbital advantage, but both sides have reinforcements inbound. We need to evacuate your population immediately." "To where?" Ilara asked again. "Earth, for now," Jackson replied simply. "And human colony worlds. We've prepared refugee centers. It's not permanent, but it's safe." The audacity of the offer stunned the Meridan leadership. Not only had these humans, unknown to the Galactic Concord and considered primitives, developed transportation technology that defied conventional understanding, they were now offering sanctuary to billions of Meridans, a species they had never met until today. "Why?" Ilara finally asked, voicing the question foremost in every Meridan mind. "Why would you risk yourselves for us?" Jackson's expression softened slightly. "You asked for help," he said, as if it were the most natural thing in the galaxy. Then, after a brief pause, he added, "And we've been watching the swarm for some time. You're not the first civilization they've targeted, but if we have anything to say about it, you'll be the last they destroy." As the evacuation began, Ilara stood at the observation platform of the Harmony Spire, watching human shuttles loading with Meridan civilians. Above, the battle continued to rage, human ships dancing between the larger swarm clusters. "You should prepare to evacuate as well, Supreme Coordinator," Jackson said, joining her at the window. "Admiral Chen is implementing Phase 2, and you'll want to be clear of the system when that happens." "What is Phase 2?" Ilara asked. Jackson's expression turned grim. "Let's just say the swarm is about to learn why most species in our history stopped fighting humans. Not because they won, but because they realized we never stop." The counterattack. The quantum fold drive hummed beneath Admiral Chen's feet as she stood on the bridge of the UNDF flagship Prometheus. The massive view screen showed the chaotic dance of human vessels weaving through the void swarm formations, each movement precisely calculated despite appearing random to observers. Decker Squadron reports evacuation shuttles at 70% capacity, her XO, Commander Ramirez, reported. Estimated completion in 43 minutes. Chen nodded, eyes never leaving the tactical display. The swarm operated with a hive mind efficiency that would have been terrifying if humans hadn't spent centuries preparing for exactly this kind of threat. Since the discovery of quantum fold technology 30 years ago, Earth had quietly observed the galaxy, cataloging threats while keeping their true capabilities hidden from the arrogant Galactic Concord. They had watched as the swarm consumed 3 civilizations before reaching the Meridans. "Signal the Thermopylae and Shivaji to execute Maneuver Delta," Chen ordered. Draw the swarm away from the southern evacuation corridor. On the display, 2 human cruisers broke formation, seemingly exposing a vulnerability in the defense perimeter. The swarm, programmed to exploit weaknesses, immediately redirected thousands of drones toward the opening. It was exactly what Chen had anticipated. "Cavalry Squadron, execute Phase 1, she commanded. A dozen smaller vessels that had been hiding in the shadow of Talaris's third moon suddenly accelerated, racing behind the swarm concentration. Each deployed a specialized payload, not conventional weapons, but complex quantum field generators that created localized disruptions in the psychic network binding the swarm together. The effect was immediate. Thousands of drones, suddenly cut off from the controlling intelligence, drifted aimlessly or collided with each other in confusion. The human cruisers they had been pursuing wheeled around, weapon systems turning the disorganized masses into expanding clouds of debris. "Clever," remarked Science Officer Dr. Eliza Kagawa, who had been analyzing the swarm's behavior patterns. "The Concorde races would have tried to destroy them with brute force, exactly what the swarm expects and can counter. But we're fighting them asymmetrically." "The swarm adapted to conventional warfare over thousands of years," Chen replied. "But they've never encountered humans." A tight smile crossed her face. "We specialize in the unconventional." Down on the surface of Talaris, Commander Jackson coordinated the ground evacuation from a temporary command post established in what had once been a Meridian cultural center. The elegant crystalline architecture contrasted sharply with the utilitarian human equipment and the armored soldiers directing frightened Meridian civilians toward the waiting shuttles. "Prioritize children and medical specialists," Jackson instructed his team. "The Meridians have healing technologies we've never seen before. Saving their doctors could save millions of human lives in the future." Lieutenant Rodriguez approached, helmet tucked under one arm. "Sir, we've got a problem. The main evacuation center in the Eastern District is surrounded by advancing swarm ground units. Local defense forces are overwhelmed." Jackson's expression hardened. "Get me Helljumper Squad." Within minutes, a team of specialized human soldiers assembled before him. 12 men and women in advanced power armor painted matte black with minimal markings. Unlike the standard UNDF forces, these soldiers carried experimental weapons and had undergone extensive genetic and cybernetic enhancements. "Helljumpers," Jackson addressed them. "We have civilians trapped in the Eastern District. The swarm has broken through local defenses. Your mission is to hold the line long enough for us to extract approximately 10,000 Meridians." The squad leader, Captain Quan, nodded once. "Understood, sir. Rules of engagement. This is a Class 5 extinction-level event. Protocol Omega is authorized." A grim silence fell over the squad. Protocol Omega removed all conventional restrictions on military action, a measure implemented only when facing an enemy that threatened the extinction of sapient life. "Get it done, Captain," Jackson said quietly. "With pleasure, sir." Quan turned to her squad. "Helljumpers, prep for orbital insertion. We drop in 5 minutes later. 12 specialized drop pods launched from a human vessel in low orbit, streaking toward the Eastern District of the Meridian capital. Each pod carried a single soldier and was designed not just for rapid deployment, but as a weapon itself. They crashed into the advancing swarm ground forces like meteors, the impact alone destroying dozens of drones. From the wreckage emerged the Helljumpers, weapons already firing. The swarm ground units, insectoid creatures ranging from dog-sized scout drones to massive tank-like behemoths, had never encountered anything like them. The enhanced soldiers moved with unnatural speed, their armor shrugging off attacks that would have disintegrated Meridian defenders instantly. Captain Quan activated her neural link, connecting directly to her squad. No verbal communication was needed as they executed complex maneuvers with perfect coordination, creating a defensive perimeter around the evacuation center. Their weapons fired specialized ammunition that disrupted the swarm's biological circuitry, rather than simply destroying physical bodies. "Commander," Quan reported via comlink, Perimeter established. Beginning civilian extraction now. Request additional shuttles. Back in orbit, Admiral Chen received the report from ground forces. They're buying us time, she told her bridge crew, but the swarm is adapting. Their central intelligence is learning from each engagement. We need to execute Phase 2 before they develop countermeasures to our quantum disruptors. The civilians aren't all evacuated yet, Ramirez cautioned. They don't need to be, Chen replied. Initiate Project Prometheus. Throughout the human fleet, specialized vessels moved into precise positions around Talaris. Each deployed a massive device that began generating an intricately patterned quantum field. Unlike the disruptors used earlier, these were not designed to temporarily sever the swarm's connections, but to permanently rewrite them. Project Prometheus was developed after we discovered the true nature of the swarm, Dr. Kagawa explained to the bridge officers. They aren't simply destroying civilizations. They're consuming information, adding each species' knowledge to their collective. But that central intelligence has a fundamental flaw. It can be reprogrammed if you understand its architecture. On the main display, the quantum fields began to merge, creating a shimmering web that enveloped the entire Talaris system. The swarm ships seemed to hesitate, their movements becoming erratic as the field interfered with their control systems. Now, ordered Chen. Dr. Kagawa activated the final sequence. The quantum web pulsed once, twice, then flashed with blinding intensity. When the light faded, the swarm vessels remained in position, but something had fundamentally changed. Their attack patterns ceased. The ground forces on Talaris froze in place. Status, Chen demanded. The rewrite was successful, Kagawa reported, examining her readings with barely contained excitement. The swarm's central intelligence has been reconfigured according to our parameters. They're no longer perceiving organic life as inefficient or threatening. In fact, she paused, double-checking her data. They're now recognizing the value of diversity in intelligence. You reprogrammed them? Ilara asked, having been brought to the bridge to witness the operation. You didn't destroy them. You changed their fundamental nature. Destruction is easy, Chen replied. Any species can evolve to destroy. But repurposing, changing an enemy into something that can coexist peacefully, that takes a deeper understanding of life itself. Ilara's 4 eyes blinked in astonishment. The Concord would never have attempted such a solution. They would have either surrendered or attempted total annihilation. Humans have a capacity for both great violence and great compassion, Chen said. Our history taught us that sometimes the best victory isn't destroying your enemy, but transforming them. In the days that followed, the true scope of humanity's achievement became clear. The reprogrammed swarm began assisting in the reconstruction efforts on Talaris, their drones now working alongside Meridian engineers to rebuild what they had destroyed. The Galactic Concord, receiving reports of the miraculous turnaround, sent a delegation to investigate. Supreme Coordinator Ilara, standing with Admiral Chen and Commander Jackson, received the Concord representatives in the partially restored Harmony Spire. The delegation included members of 6 different Concord species, all regarding the humans with expressions ranging from curiosity to thinly veiled apprehension. The Concord acknowledges the unexpected assistance provided by Earth forces. The lead representative began, carefully avoiding direct mention of their previous abandonment of the Meridians. We wish to express our interest in opening diplomatic relations with humanity. Chen and Jackson exchanged a glance but remained silent, allowing Ilara to respond. The Meridian Collective has entered into a mutual defense and cultural exchange agreement with Earth, Ilara stated firmly. Any future discussions with humanity will include Meridian representatives as equal partners. The Concord delegation shifted uncomfortably. We understand the Meridians feel a sense of gratitude toward the humans, but the Concord has protocols for introducing new species to the galactic community. There are assessments, probationary periods. The humans saved our civilization when you abandoned us, Ilara interrupted, her melodic voice carrying an edge the Concord representatives had never heard before. They transformed an enemy you deemed unstoppable. They did not ask for permission or recognition, and they most certainly do not require your approval to join the galactic community. As if to emphasize her point, a group of reprogrammed swarm drones flew past the spire's windows, carrying construction materials. The Concord representatives watched with poorly disguised unease. Perhaps, Admiral Chen suggested smoothly, the Concord might benefit from reconsidering its approach to interspecies relations. Earth has much to offer. Advanced quantum technologies, medical breakthroughs, defensive capabilities, and we're eager to share these with peaceful civilizations. But we do so as equals, not as supplicants. After the Concord delegation departed, promising to consider Earth's unique situation, Jackson joined Chen and Ilara on the observation deck. The view had changed dramatically from weeks earlier, no longer showing a desperate battle, but the beginnings of reconstruction. Human ships worked alongside repurposed swarm vessels, and on the surface, the first new buildings were rising from the ruins. "They're afraid of us," Jackson remarked. "As well they should be," Chen replied. "We accomplished in weeks what they couldn't imagine in centuries." Ilara studied her human allies thoughtfully. "The Concord fears what it doesn't understand. They see your capacity for warfare and your unconventional solutions as threatening. They don't recognize the compassion behind your actions." "Humanity has always been paradoxical," Chen said, "capable of terrible destruction, yet driven to protect and nurture. We fought among ourselves for millennia before realizing our strength comes from cooperation, not dominance. And now?" Ilara asked. "Now we extend that lesson to the stars," Chen replied. "The Concord believed isolation was safety. We know better. True security comes from connection, from having allies who will answer when you call." As if on cue, a communication alert sounded. Jackson checked the message and looked up with a grim expression. "Another distress signal," he reported. "Similar situation to Talaris. Different species, same swarm pattern, at least the original swarm programming. 3 systems away." "The Concord?" Ilara asked. "Already implementing their isolation protocol," Jackson confirmed bitterly. Chen's expression hardened with resolve. "Prepare the fleet for quantum fold. Notify Earth to ready additional evacuation centers." She turned to Ilara. "Would any of your people wish to join us? This mission could benefit from Meridan medical expertise." Ilara's luminescence, which had begun to return in recent days, brightened noticeably. "I believe many would. Our civilization's first contact may have been born of desperation, but our continued cooperation will be by choice." As preparations began for the new mission, a Meridan scientist approached Ilara with data from their cultural archives. "Supreme Coordinator, we've been studying human history as part of our cultural exchange. I found something remarkable in their mythologies." "What is it?" Ilara asked. Across their planet, despite developing independently, many of their ancient cultures shared a common archetype, a figure who brings both protection and transformation. In one of their oldest civilizations, it was called Prometheus, a being who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity, forever changing their relationship with the universe. Ilara looked toward the human flagship that bore that very name, now preparing to save another civilization. "How fitting," she said softly, "that they named their mission after a being who transformed the world by breaking the rules of the powerful." As the human Meridan fleet prepared to depart, Admiral Chen stood on her bridge, watching the quantum fold drive charge for another journey. She thought of Earth, so recently isolated in its own solar system, now extending its protection to species across the galaxy. "The Concord races called us primitive," she mused to her officers. "They thought our history of conflict made us dangerous. They never understood that struggle taught us resilience, and pain taught us empathy." The quantum fold drive reached full power, creating the swirling vortex that would carry them to another civilization in need. "Set course for the coordinates," Chen ordered. "Let's show the galaxy what humanity stands for." The fleet vanished into the quantum fold, leaving behind a transformed Talaris and a message that would soon spread throughout the stars. When desperate aliens called for aid, humanity's fleet answered, and the galaxy would never be the same.